Coming up on the Booth Review, London, you're going to tell us what you think of the D in 2025.
Oh, yeah, the defensive line, the big boys, they will lead the charge to a revamped defense.
Fletch, this is an offensive-driven league. With me, you talk about offense and how we stave off statistical regression.
And we're all going to talk about what a successful season looks like this year. Coming up. Welcome into our second edition, the Week 1 edition, our Labor Day edition of the Booth Review Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein with Big Fletch, London Fletcher. We're brought to you by Microsoft Copilot PC, powering a better game. It is here. The long off season is over. Week 1, London. I can't wait.
You know what? I don't think the offseason was that long, Bram. I mean, it feels like it flew by. One minute we were calling the game in the NFC Championship, and next thing you know, we're here, ready for Week 1. And I'm looking forward to seeing this defense get after the not only the Giants, but just play all season long.
Yeah, what I've learned as I get older is I need more hobbies in the offseason because I get bored. So, like, that's the problem. I can't. I'm just sitting around, like, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for this to happen. You're out there playing golf, so I got to take up something here to get ready for these seasons. All right, I'm ready for the Giants too. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the defense as a whole, and let's start with just the overarching theme, which was Joe Witt, Dan Quinn stated on the record they are going to be a much more aggressive defense, play the style, as they put it, that we got accustomed to, I think most recently in Dallas, where they would bring a lot of heat. They became turnover machines. At times, a top 5 defense, they were flipping games upside down. So let me just get your just general thoughts. Stylistically, what do you expect from the Commanders this year?
I expect them to be like Joe Witt wants them to play and like DQ wants them to play. Ton of man-to-man on the back end. I think they had the requisite corners to be able to play man-to-man defense. You go out, you draft Trey Amos. Now you move Sanders Steele into the nickel position. You have a healthy Marshawn Lattimore, and that's going to be key. So those guys will really excel in being able to play man-to-man coverage. Also, I think getting a Will Harris, who's a really versatile safety, a guy you can also play at the dime spot in passing situations. So they have the guys that can play man-to-man on the back end, bring pressure, add a Von Miller. You went out and you got Javon Kinlaw. You needed to get bigger in the trenches. They did that. Now you got guys where you don't have to play like the two-gapping style. You can play more downhill. You can get more plays in the backfield, more negative yardage plays, be more disruptive, put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And that hopefully will lead to more turnovers, either with forced fumbles or quarterback throwing errant passes.
Yeah, I want to stay on the corners. Like, I don't think there is a unit on this team when we were talking at this time last year to getting set for this season that is more improved than that group overall from where they were and who was on the field a year ago when they had their opener against Tampa versus what I think looks like a healthy Marshawn Lattimore. Trey Amos has looked the part from day one. It was in the spring where we were going, that guy's day one starter. Sanders Still, who is consistently around the ball, moves to what they believe is going to be his most natural and successful position. And they're deep with people like Jonathan Jones. This unit, to me, is probably the biggest improvement that they've made, I think, over the course of a year to flip it from what was, I think, a liability a year ago into what might be the strength of the defense.
And it is crazy that you say a liability where you look on paper, they were the 3rd ranked pass defense, but how much of that was because they were so bad against the run, to where teams just ran the ball a little bit more against them. And you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned Jonathan Jones. That's another guy I failed to mention, but a very underrated signing as well. And the thing that this group has, especially at the cornerback position, a ton of versatility. You have Jones and Sanders Steele that both can play inside and outside. So if you have an injury situation or whatever the case may be, those guys have the ability to play both the nickel position, go cover slots, or they can go outside. Trey Amos, a bigger defensive back. What I liked about him was his poise on balls downfield. Oftentimes, you see a defensive back start to panic, especially when the ball is down the field. They panic, they start to get grabby, and they create unnecessary pass interference plays. And there were times in the in the preseason and also throughout training camp where he's making forcing incompletions because he's just so poised, doesn't panic. He'll come up with that size. He'll tackle in the run game, and he can get his hands on the football. So that's as you mentioned, this is this is the biggest improved unit on the football team.
Yeah, I want to get into the run defense too overall because there was clearly a priority to get bigger up front and to try to be better generally against the run. But just look at our division for a minute here. With the addition of George Pickens to Dallas, so they got Pickens and Lamb. That's an incredible duo. Whether Dallas can run the ball really well, to be seen. Malik Neighbors, I would argue, might be the best receiver in the entire league, or the most uncoverable one in our division. And then you've got the duo, right? You've got the duo of Brown and Smith to go along with that incredible rush game in Philadelphia. But if you think about, like, yes, the run defense needed to be improved. Look at the receivers that Washington is lining up against week to week to win the division. They have to have a strong corner unit to really have a shot this year.
They really do. And, it's a situation where you don't get a bye week, so to speak. There's not a situation, especially within the division where you got, one team may have one guy. But as you mentioned, most of these teams have two guys. We're seeing, we don't know just yet who's going to be that other guy in addition to Neighbors and with the New York Giants. But as you mentioned, he's trying to guard him one-on-one. He's creating problems for guys, and he's only a second-year player. But you need those guys. You need to be able to say, "Hey, we can feel comfortable playing man-to-man against these guys." And I also want guys, the people that are watching this, to understand you're not going to completely shut down these wide receivers that you face week in and week out. You're not going to hold a guy like A.J. Brown to 2 receptions for 15 yards. And you just got to understand, limit the big plays, limit the explosives, and allow us to be able to maybe force the quarterback to hold the football a little bit longer, tick longer, to allow the pass rush to get home and put pressure on quarterbacks.
The other person off the secondary, I want to stay there for a minute, that I want to mention is Quan Martin, who has gotten a lot of accolades from the coaching staff throughout the offseason. Dan Quinn and Joe Witt have talked about development of leadership and named him as one of the people that has really grown as a leader. He started making some really big plays at the end of last year. We found out he had both shoulders that needed to be repaired. So he was playing through a lot of pain last year. Obviously had one of those all-time moments in Detroit with the pick 6, but his development seems to be key too, because they keep talking about this ball is life. We have like what looks to be 3 corners that if the ball comes near them, they can catch it now. This is different than what they had in the past. Quan's capable of making these plays as well.
He is. And with Quan, his rookie year, he had so much versatility coming out of Illinois, and you were kind of trying to figure him out. Like, is he a safety? Is he a nickel? What is he? He's really found a home as the free safety in this defense. You love him as a general back in the back end. He communicates. He carries himself like a much more mature player. Like he doesn't seem like a third-year player. One of the most underrated aspects of his game is his ability to make tackles in the open field. There were so many times last season where runs would get out and Quan would come up and make sure tackles that now it's not going to show up in the stat line as an interception or pass defense, but it's a touchdown saving tackle. It's limiting a run to 12 yards as opposed to 30 yards, things like that, to where you can, live to fight and play another down. I really love the maturation of his game. I think he has Pro Bowl potential, and hopefully he'll get that recognition. But he's definitely one of those guys that you love the potential that he has and the skills that he brings to this defense.
All right, let me stay on the pass defense first. I'll get into the rush defense in a little bit. But the front is going to be what they're going to do. They're going to be more aggressive. They're going to bring more people. They're going to try to get some game-changing plays. I think the hope is that this goes along with a better rush defense on first and second down and gets teams more in third and longs and gives them the opportunity to try to make these plays. That said, Von Miller's here, but at his age, price point, I mean, I think it's unfair to go, well, he'll be a 15-sack player again. I don't think that's fair to kind of put that on him. As you kind of look across the board, you could still make the case that game-changing edge rusher, the people that Quinn and Witt used in Dallas, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence come to mind, that were game-changing type players, may or may not be on this roster right now. So as you think about like who's going to get the sacks, where's the pressure coming from? How do you think about that?
I think you're going to have a bunch of guys, maybe let's call it 3 or 4 guys with around 8 or 9 sacks on this defense. I think Von, is a guy who can get you 8 to 10 sacks. Dorrance Armstrong is a guy that can get you 8 to 10 sacks. Frankie Louisville, I think he'll be a 10 to 12 sack type of guy. You got Kinlaw who'll probably get you 8 or 9 sacks. And then Deron Payne's going to be a guy that's going to probably get you, let's call it 4 to 6 sacks. So you got some guys collectively that can get to the quarterback. I don't know that you'll have a 15 sack type of guy, a 16 sack type of guy, but they'll be able to generate pressure on the quarterback. Even last year, they had 43 sacks, which was not terrible. It was 11 tied for 11th in the National Football League, and I feel like we have better pass rushers this season. And think about this: when you can put the type of speed that you can put on the field, you got Von Miller at one edge, Louisville at another edge, put Dorrance Armstrong over a guard, put either Kinlaw or Deron Payne over a attack or guard as well. That's some guys that can get after the quarterback. Those are some guys that can get after the quarterback.
I mean, you already said it. Like, I was going to ask you who you think's going to lead the team in sacks. I think it's going to be Louvu at the end of the year. Like, I actually think he's the one that's going to end up with double digits of all of these names out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. And the thing that what he finished with last year, was it 8 sacks or 9? I can't recall right offhand, but what I do like about Louvu is he's going to benefit so much from Von. Not only teams, kind of not being able to kind of slide protection or chip him a little bit, but also Louvu learning from Von and Von being able to give him some like pointers and learning how to rush the passer. And not only that, I think they'll move him around, maybe put him over a center. Can you imagine lining Louvu up, head up over a center, and using his quickness and speed at the snap, much like the Cowboys use Micah Parsons, and you put that type of speed and quickness in the inside. Those guards aren't used to dealing with that type of speed.
Yeah, Dorrance Armstrong had a tremendous camp. We saw him move inside. He did this in Dallas too, but we saw him move inside, stand-up position as well on the inside. I think there's a lot of creativity here. Deron Payne at times has been slid outside. Let's see how they utilize Von Miller and in what packages. And the depth across the board on the front is a big storyline here coming in too. I'm going to be really interested to see what these packages look like of these players. I wonder if you kind of are feeling the same way I am. I'm not sure what combinations of players, especially in the third down, third to medium, third and long situations, what combinations of players are we going to see out there from Joe Witt?
You'll see a variety of different combinations. It may be a situation where you have 4 what you would consider edge rushers on the field at one time, and maybe they call it like their NASCAR package or whatever they would call it, where it's just 4 edge rushers, and you just don't know who's going to line up where. You got a ton of speed on the field, and let's get after the quarterback. Dietrich Wise, he can get after the quarterback as well. I think also from a blitzing standpoint, having Sanders Steele and covering the slot, he'll be really good in the pressure package as well. That's something else to consider. And then Bobby Wagner can get after the quarterback. How can we forget Bobby? Bobby had about 4 or 5 sacks last season as well. And even when he didn't get sacks, he was able to beat a lot of running backs and put pressure on quarterbacks. So that's another added element to the pass rush.
So, like, there were two things I think if they could change about last year that they would. One was getting the ball more often. They preach ball is life. I think they feel like with the personnel that they have, specifically the ball skills of the back end, and hopefully getting them in a position to make those types of plays, I think they feel pretty confident that that's going to be different this year. The other one is the run defense. The run defense was among the worst in the NFL. They went out of their way to get bigger. Like, this is what will be extremely noticeable about them when it starts the season. If you haven't been paying close attention, Dietrich Wise is big. Javon Kinlaw is huge. They have others in terms of depth that are veterans that are large, hole blocking people in the middle of the line. And so all of that from a pure size perspective, they're much bigger than they were. But why do you think that'll translate to them being better as a rush defense as a whole?
I just think being able to play more, what did you call single gap type defense, being able to penetrate as opposed to there's a difference when you know you have one gap, you can be more aggressive as a linebacker. You can play downhill, really get double team blocks off of the defensive tackles a lot faster. Last year there was a lot of, we call it two gapping or playing like kind of a gap and a half. And when you do that type of style, those double teams stay on the tackles a lot longer and the defensive ends in some cases. And that allows penetration or movement by the offensive line. They're able to get movement on those defensive linemen, and linemen are playing in your lap a lot more. But by you playing more gap defense, one gap defense, now you can play downhill, play be a lot more disruptive, play in the opponent's backfield a lot more, and that should be better. Also, setting the edge is harder, whether it's from a defensive end standpoint, and it's not just about the defensive ends. Your corners have to be willing tacklers that understand where they fit in the run game, making sure you get that ball back to your pursuit, coming from inside out, setting hard edges, not allowing those holes to get wider. And you look at the big run against the Philadelphia Eagles, or the Eagles had against us at the opening play of the playoffs for them. Poor run fits, not fitting properly on that and soft edge, and that's how Saquon Barkley was able to take that thing to the house.
All right, let me talk about one specific player too. I just want to get your opinion on him, having seen him now for the summer. Javon Kinlaw, who was a major signing for this team, drafted by the front office that Adam Peters was with in San Francisco, had injuries the first couple of years of his career, ended up going to the Jets, had a year, became a free agent, comes here. The first thing they said about him was, you haven't seen the best of him. And throughout the course of the summer, he is immovable. There are moments where he blows up plays like that. You wouldn't believe that one person is blowing up plays. I think what people want to see from him is consistency. Is this going to occur over and over and over, or are there just moments? So what have you noticed? I mean, he didn't play much in the preseason, but what have you noticed about Kinlaw here in his first offseason with the team?
The first thing you mentioned is health. And I think oftentimes people don't realize how much health plays a part in how productive you are. And you mentioned him dealing with some injuries his first couple of years, and he was a first round draft pick in San Francisco, and he kind of got set back a little bit. The size, the snap, the power, the disruption that he's able to create. There's going to be times where he's disruptive, and it won't be, hey, Kinlaw made the tackle or Kinlaw made the sack. It's Kinlaw was so disruptive that somebody else was able to play off of him, make a tackle for a loss, get a sack, get a TFL, things like that. But I tell you what, there was a couple of times in the game against the Cincinnati Bengals in the run game where the power that he was able to control the guards with and disregard them, get off blocks, make tackles at or a yard past the line of scrimmage. That's what you want in a defensive tackle.
Overall, I can't believe I'm saying this like off of the camp because of who the quarterback is on this team, how good the offense was a year ago, the additions. We're going to get into the offense with Logan in a minute. Laramie Tunsil, Deebo Samuel, namely, that are coming here. The additions that were made, I just kind of felt like the offense was going to become just much more formidable immediately for a lot of reasons. They didn't really practice together throughout the course of the summer. And it's fair to say, like, it wasn't clicking for a while there. And, I assume that everything with number 5 and Cliff and all that, it's going to work out. Like, but if they start a little bit slower, like, I am more bullish about what the defense looks like early in the season. I don't think everybody on the outside realizes how improved it is, stylistically, what it's going to look like, how much deeper they are, how them with the propensity to get turnovers is very different than it was a year ago. Like, I have a feeling that this defense is going to surprise a lot of people when we get into the real games.
And it's all going to be predicated on their ability to stop the run. And when I say stop the run, you have to have teams operating consistently from call it 3rd and 4 or more. Ideally, you want to be 3rd and 5 or more to earn the right to rush the passer. If you're in a bunch of 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 1s, defensively, it's going to be tough to get off the field, force punts, get the ball back to that offense. But if you get them at 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 7s, now you can really unleash your pass rush. You'll have more impactful plays, whether it be sacks, forced fumbles, interception opportunities, plays to be made in the passing game. So you have to. It's all predicated on what you're able to do, stopping a run, especially on 1st and 2nd down.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of years in Dallas, we saw this firsthand. They had a top 5 defense, and they had like Trayvon Diggs had a season where he broke a single season record for picks for Dallas. They broke the single season record for pick sixes with Deron Bland. Like, that whole ball is life thing is what became the real game changer for the Dallas defenses under Quinn and Witt. I'm hoping we get that here. And I feel like with the corners that we have now, if they can generate the type of disruptive pass rush and, to your point, get teams more into 3rd and medium and long with a better rush defense, I think we got a shot at a lot more turnovers. And if that's happening with this quarterback, I think it's going to increase the probability of them having yet another season, double-digit wins, back to the playoffs, all of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and getting vision on the quarterback. It's so they what I like. They've been playing a lot more cover 2. They did it a lot last year, and they're going to have their man to man is going to probably be the lead coverage for this group, but also when they're able to play cover 2, and they have a bunch of creative ways that they get into their cover 2 drops. It's not just your traditional corners playing the flats, linebackers playing what you call a post technique, middle linebacker running the seams, and safeties playing 2 deep. They might have a safety become the middle of the field run guy. They might have 2 defensive ends drop and become the 2 poachers. They've been and rush Bobby and stuff like that. And they got a bunch of different creative ways to get into that cover 2. I call it morphing into that cover 2 coverage and morphing into your zone reads and zone coverage. Even your robber techniques where you're showing them too high shell and you got one of those safeties kind of playing that high hole intermediate type area, middle of the field, reading the quarterback on looking for in breaking routes, being able to make interceptions and get PBU. So this is having this group, this unit is going to allow Joe Witt and DQ to play the style of defense that they played and play so well when they were in Dallas.
Yeah, last year at this time when we walked into the season, I think I was genuinely surprised at how effective the offense was early in the year. I think it's going to be the inverse this year. I think teams are going to be very surprised early how much more effective the defense actually is going to be this year. Everyone knows about Jayden Daniels, has expectations of Jayden Daniels, the offense, all that stuff. I think they're being overlooked here. And so I think that's going to be an interesting part for the first month of the season if you see a much more effective defense. But let's turn our attention to the offense. Time to bring in on game day. London and I are in the booth. Logan's down on the field. For this purpose of the booth review, we put him on the bench. So we're going to get Logan Paulson from the Pine to get in on the offense. He joins us from the Big Bear AI Command Center studio. There he is, bucket hat and all. Hello, Mr. Paulson. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you guys doing? That was a really fun conversation to listen to regarding the defense. Learned a lot, as always, when I listen to you guys.
Doing great.
All right, let's get into the offense, Logan. Let me start just kind of big picture here. Do you think stylistically that Cliff Kingsbury is thinking, with the addition specifically of Tunsil for the offensive line, Debo as a movable part and explosive playmaker, the offense looks very different from it did a year ago?
I don't know if it looks different. I think what an addition like Debo allows you to do is emphasize stuff that you already want to be good at and emphasize offensive principles that carry good offenses. And what I mean by that is when you look at offenses like Kyle Shanahan 3 years ago, like what they're able to do is kind of have a low average depth of target with a high separation number and then a large yards after the catch number. So like when I think about what Debo does so well and did so well in that offense is taking, as an example, like we saw in the Baltimore game, all these kind of like little bubble screens, pre-snap reads, like where we're getting favorable numbers, we're getting nickel pressure, we get 2 over 2, we get one blocker and then one runner. And a guy like Debo is going to maximize that look. So while whoever's catching that screen in the Baltimore game catches that ball for 3 yards, Debo can maybe make it 10, maybe he makes it 15. And all of a sudden, this other element that I think is kind of important in modern offenses is finding explosive plays. So the way you'd characterize, or the way PFF characterizes that, is a run over 10 yards and a pass play over 20 yards, right? So I think bringing that addition, because of his skill set, allows you to lean more into kind of quote unquote modern offensive statistical efficiency. And I know, Fletch, I said statistics, you're going to freak out now, but like that's what I think this allows you to do.
Logan, actually, you did a great job of breaking it all down. I was like, you know what, this is some great analytic stuff. Yeah, no, I was okay with it.
I think because you got Steele coming in now, man, you're pulled over to the dark side now. Your son plays wide receiver.
But your explanation of the I guess you call it the short targets, and then being able to create yak yards after the catch and things like that. That was a great breakdown explanation of what we can expect from this offense, especially when it comes to Debo, and even probably like a guy like a Jalen Lane as well.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. I think when you look at like one of the reasons like OZ was so effective in this offense last year is like he's a kind of Debo Samuel light, right? He's got like this great contact balance. He can kind of he doesn't run every route in the route tree, but can run a bunch of them. And so I think you just kind of evolve that position. You know, if you guys like Pokemon, he went from stage 1 to stage 2 Pokemon, you know, Bulbasaur to Blastoise or whatever we're talking about here.
We get all kind of references.
Hey, he made a Wreck-It Ralph reference. Brad made a Wreck-It Ralph reference last week, so I can make a Pokemon reference.
No, I love it. I love it.
It's so crazy. Like for years and years and years, people like me who never played, we used all this statistical stuff to like back up our arguments. And when I say it, it just makes me a football nerd, or I don't know what I'm talking about. Logan says it, and it's all true. It's the gospel. So like,
wait. Hold on now, Brad. Here's the deal. Analytics have always been a part of the game from a play calling, game planning standpoint. Like, we just didn't call it analytics. We call it percentages or statistics, or we used to call it a hit chart.
Yeah.
Like, hey, they're in this personnel grouping, this down and distance, wherever they are on the football field, there's a high probability, let's call it 80% chance they're going to run the football. And these are your 3 top runs, especially if they get in this formation, things like that. Now, they've just called it analytics now, and it's a great way for the nerds to all of a sudden be a part of the game, a part of sports, man. It's taking over. So I'm able to really decipher it and put it into my own layman's words, what Logan and you guys just explained.
So it's so funny. Fletch gives me such a hard time for all this analytics stuff, but like when Fletch played, he was like the first analytics guy, right? He was the guy that could remember all the first down percentages. He could remember the runs they had. Like, and again, that's what makes good players good, is they're able to kind of internalize and then digest that information into production on the field. But yeah, like he gives me a hard time for it, but don't get it twisted. He was a big analytics guy before it was. He was the first.
You know what?
Go ahead, London.
No. I just Bram and Logan. For me, I don't want the nerds to take over my game.
You know, it's funny though. I was talking to my son about this the other day, and you know, like with baseball, analytics have kind of like ruined, quote unquote. With basketball, it's kind of ruined. I do think in some ways, like it's made football better, right? It's kind of diversified the offenses you see. It's kind of said, oh, you know, we can't run, you know, college offenses, but it just increases offensive efficiency, right? You see a running quarterback now. I think that's analytically driven in a lot of ways, right? You see kind of the advent of finding these explosive play action shots. And then a couple of years ago, remember, Fletch, they were like, oh, we can't run the football. It's not, you know, it's not an efficient play. And then all of a sudden, because they can't really define why running makes it easier for the quarterback, they've kind of backtracked that model a little bit, and you're seeing running come back into vogue. So I think even though analytics are kind of infecting modern NFL football, I think it's really interesting because they can't define all the parameters. And that's what makes it so fun to talk about analytics with regards to football.
There's too many moving parts.
Yeah.
This isn't baseball. This isn't baseball where you can run a data sheet, an analytic report on this pitcher versus this hitter, or this hitter has trouble with this particular pitch in this particular location. And if you can execute that, you're probably going to have success, and start talking about launch angles, things like that. Every single play has 22 people on the field that all need to do the right thing at the right time to make anything work. The analytics help accentuate maybe some more tendencies that you should do, or some pathways to success. It still doesn't change the fact that there are too many people that could either make it successful or screw it up all at the same time. And I think that's why the analytics are what they are. And like, I've known London long enough that I know, like, he's buying into the analytics, but in the end, he's like, how about I just go punch somebody in the mouth and I'll show you where your stats can go.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we were talking about Cliff, right? Cliff Kingsbury's offense. Took a little digression.
Yeah, let's talk about the offense as a whole. You mentioned Debo. Jalen Lane's an interesting one too. We can come back to him. Let me get to the run game with you, which early in the season last year was really successful. There were numerous 200-plus yard collective rush days for this team. Obviously, Brian Robinson was a big change for them. We're going to see what Bill is for this offense. Austin Eckler comes back. As you kind of think through the run game with the new offensive line and the group that they have, and add in Debo to whatever degree that is, add in Jayden, how are you thinking about collectively the rush game this year?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, obviously with the additions on the offensive line, Laramie Tunsil, Brandon Coleman, a guard, and then kind of the depth pieces of Wiley and Allegretti, I think they're just, again, they're trying to maximize or provide more clarity on the offense that they ran last year. And so Fletch and I have talked about this. I've talked about this, you, Bram, like the idea of statistical regression in certain categories, right? So like the idea that I'm not going to be as efficient on fourth down this year, or my completion percentage is going to drop a little bit, right? So with defense, you see that manifesting in we got to be better on first down, right? Because if we're better on first down, then we can be more efficient on third down. And there's like a ripple and a trickle down effect. I see that same thing happening, honestly, with the offensive side of the football. If we can make sure our first and second down runs are even like 1 yard more efficient. So all of a sudden we're in 2nd and 6 as opposed to 3rd or 2nd and 7. Now the playbook opens up. We increase our offensive efficiency because statistically, as we get closer to that first down marker, it becomes easier to get a first down. So I think that's what you're looking at there, is if we can maximize the efficiency of some of our runs by increasing the efficiency of some of our personnel. And again, like, that to me is what you're trying to get to, right? Is you're trying to stave off statistical regression by becoming more efficient at running the football. So low leverage, low stress on the quarterback, higher efficiency. Again, so when I got to throw my pitch with Jayden Daniels, when I got to have him be a hero on 3rd and 5, when I got to have him get a first down on 4th and 2, like we've got all those plays at our disposal because, again, our first down efficiency is more effective.
Yeah.
All right, now let me break this down into layman's terms. we got better
I could hear Jason laughing in the background.
On the offensive line. We got better in the trenches. So Laramie Tunsil, now you got him. Excellent pass protector, underrated run blocker. But you move Brandon Coleman, a bigger body, into that left guard position. He's going to roll great. Biotis, he got banged up down the stretch, and the run game started to suffer a little bit, but tough as nails, really good run blocker. Andrew Wiley, until Sam Cosmi comes back, he's going to be a really good run blocker. He had his moments, where he struggled a little bit at times with pass pro, but as a run blocker, he was very good. So now you got him in that interior running the football. Helping run the ball. Josh Connerly, hell of an athlete. He's going to be a really good run blocker. So all this efficiency and analytics is one thing, and all this, but at the end of the day, we got better in the damn trenches.
and I think the other interesting thing, I think that's a really succinct way of putting it, Fletch, and I was trying to sound smart, but yeah, we got better in the trenches, right? We're going to be more efficient. The other thing, too, is like the type of players that they've gotten, right? They've gotten more athletic people, and everyone thinks, for run blocking, it's this bigger, hulking, lean-on-you type of guy, but I think with this system, because of all the pulling, that athletic dexterity is something that's going to make us more efficient, right? Coleman pulling to the perimeter. We saw how athletic Connerly could be in that New England game with some of that tight zone footwork, getting to the second level, outside zone. It just allows you to be a little bit more effective with that stuff and a little bit more diverse when you get those athletic kind of lithe bodies in there. So I think that's a great point by you.
And John Bates, one of the best run blockers.
Preach. Now we're talking tight ends. Let's get that thing going, right? Just in terms of what he allows you to do.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Logan, just because the offensive line as a group essentially didn't really practice much together, like the last few weeks of camp, for a variety of reasons. Brandon Coleman was out. I thought it was a really good sign that he elected to play in that last preseason game, because he said he wanted some reps at left guard because he had missed some time. Laramie Tunsil has been dinged up a little bit. We're presuming he's going to be fine, but didn't practice a ton. Then when we saw him in New England joint practice, he looked like Laramie Tunsil. We're still waiting on Sam Cosmi. Open question about who starts at right tackle to start the season, who's the right guard when we start the season. As you kind of think about where this offense will go when presumably we get health back and reps together, how are you thinking about the beginning of the season and then what ultimately it looks like when we get the gang back together?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think it's a really good concern on some level too. I will say I'm not concerned about Laramie at all. I think, I played with him in Houston. This is kind of like part of his process. Like, he's not super involved in the offseason. He kind of trains on his own. I don't have any, he's played so much football. I'm not worried about him missing any time. The Coleman one is interesting because he is moving to a new position. He hasn't gotten a ton of reps there. I think the athleticism, the length, the size, like Fletch alluded to, make me feel a little bit more comfortable. And the fact that he's flanked by Biotish and by Laramie Tunsil makes me think that those two veterans should be able to get communicated anything they need to get communicated to him. And then I think the other thing that makes me feel good, and Fletch can speak to this too, is just having backups with experience. And I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it 1,000,001. When you've got guys with that level of experience, you don't have to worry about them coming in and not knowing. Because again, with young players, one of the concerns is that, hey, they just don't know like how we're targeting this. They don't know how we're going to block this protection versus this cross dog, right? And so when you get guys that have done it, they've seen 1,000,000 reps, they've been in a bunch of different systems, it makes me feel so much better. And again, like whoever's playing on the right side, let's say it's Wiley and Allegretti, they started last year, right? So I don't need to be worried about that, right? Let's say Connerly comes in, he's going to be playing next to Wiley or Allegretti, who's playing a ton of football. So I love that they've kind of been able to bracket and kind of pair these younger players in these weaker spots with guys who've played a lot of football.
What do you think, London, as they get the line together?
Oh no! This excellent stuff. Logan did it. He did such a great job breaking it down. I didn't have anything else to add to it.
Speechless.
It's and I think one thing, even once Cosmi comes back, and we don't know when that's going to be, there may be a kind of a. Remember last year they were doing this kind of platoon at the tackle spot.
Yeah.
With Brandon Coleman.
Do you think they do that this year? I don't have a good feel for it. Do you think they do that this year?
I'm just saying they might just to maybe get him before you don't want to just throw him in the fire. I don't think you want to just throwing him in the fire and playing, hey, go play 65 snaps a game, especially if you don't have, if he doesn't have to, because you feel really good about the guys that you have. And hey, we can kind of bring him along a little bit, somewhat slowly, so to speak. And then, hey, maybe he's 4 games into it. Now he's full bore. Let him go and just cut it loose. If that's the way they feel like doing it.
And he's interesting too, because I feel like he's just getting he kind of had a slow start to camp, but he's just kind of hitting this really nice growth curve. And so I'm kind of like, what's he going to be in 13 days or, a week when the game starts here, right? Is he ready to go by then? And so I think that's another thing that makes that situation a little bit hard to read. But man, I love his athleticism. I love his upside. It's just about kind of where you think he's at in his developmental curve, I guess, developmental arc.
Yeah, I don't know how much the coaches think about the matchups, but early, this is going to be welcome to the NFL. That's Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter. Week 3 is Max Crosby. These are elite of the elite defensive ends, Burns and Crosby specifically, that he could be lining up against. So I don't know how they think about matchups, but it is going to be, and listen, welcome to the NFL. You're going to be playing elite players, but they've got top tier Pro Bowl, all pro caliber at rush ends that they're going to be facing early in the season this year.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously concerning from a talent standpoint. Sorry, Lyndon. I just couldn't help myself. I got super juiced up there. Anyway.
Oh, no, you good.
So like with Cliff, for example, I think he's shown, that's the one thing that's great about Cliff is he's shown an ability to call a game with limitations at the offensive line. Whether it's our chip packages, whether it's our kind of leaning into heavy rundowns, whether it's the RPO stuff, whether it's the compilation of the quick game, which Jayden Daniels, we haven't even talked about Jayden Daniels, is so excellent at managing because he's got that quick release. So I do think Cliff, he does a good job of being aware, in my opinion, of the thing that's the hardest to do in the offense outside of playing quarterback is play offensive line. So how do I make sure those guys, I have to make sure the quarterback's comfortable, but I also have to make sure the offensive line's comfortable. And I think you saw, I think they went through a couple of weeks where they didn't give up last year, and you probably remember this, Bram, they didn't give up a sack to an edge rusher. Myles Garrett played, he didn't have a pressure. And obviously, Cliff had an awareness with the chip help, with the slide help, with the quick game, of how to mitigate that. And so that makes me feel very confident that going into some of these matchups, it puts more pressure on Cliff, no doubt, but that we can manage some of those issues.
And some of that, in fairness, too, our quarterback is so ridiculously elusive that there were moments where he escaped out of situations as well.
Yeah, just real quick, I wasn't talking about platooning Connerly. I was talking about once Cosby comes back.
Oh, right.
Maybe they bring him along a little bit, where it's Cosby and maybe it's Andrew Wiley kind of platooning at that guard spot, a little bit long. Now, I wasn't talking about Connolly. Hell, Connolly, he's looked excellent to me. But no, they understand. You mentioned the chip packages and all those types of things. And again, there's also the ability, the run game, and how that really slows down the pass rush. I think we can be better in the screen game to running backs. We didn't really excel as much with the true screens to running backs as I'm sure they probably would like to have, and maybe they're looking to really ramp that up where it's not just always the bubble screens. If we can get more production out of the screens to the running backs, that also slows down the pass rush, and that negates some of the pressure packages and things like that by defenses.
I do want to talk about Jayden in a minute, but one more topic before we get to him, and that is Terry McLaurin, who did not practice with the team throughout the course of the summer, but obviously expected to be back, ramp up for the Giants, and then a quick turnaround to play Green Bay. He did not practice with the team throughout the summer. Do you have any sense of whether that would affect the volume of plays that he has used early in the season?
I just think about how Dan has handled injuries so far and guys that are in return to play. And obviously this is an injury, but he's very fastidious. We have a very excellent Chad Englehart. Shout out Chad. He does a great job with Tim, the director of kind of return to play stuff here, of managing these things. They're very analytical. They have greatly comprehensive test protocols. So I think they're going to be hyper aware, honestly, of Terry and his kind of return to the offense. And so if I'm Cliff, if I'm, Dan, I'm really kind of trying to make sure that we kind of manage some of those high speed numbers early on and kind of maybe give him a package. And again, like when you think about what he brings to the offense and what this offense did so well last year, it was kind of finding explosive plays. He was a big part of that. And so how do we still kind of make sure the offense has teeth in terms of explosive plays down the field early in the season? I think it's the best way is to kind of package it up, limit his total play volume, but make sure that we're getting impact from him in those specific moments.
The good thing is he'll have 5 or 6 practices prior to the game against the Giants, and you can kind of Logan touched on it about the return of play, and they'll wrap him up, maybe push him a little bit harder early, then dial him back a little bit, then ramp him up a little bit just to see how his body's responding to all those types of things. I don't expect Terry to go out and play 90% of the snaps in the game against the Giants. I'm not sure even if he had training camp if he played 90% of the snaps just because of some of the different personnel groupings they may want to employ or deploy in that game against the Giants. So can we expect him to play? I would think 70 to 75, 80% of the snaps. I think that's fair to say he can go out there and do that. And to your point, Logan, you're kind of scheming it up to where you're not going to have him running, 8 go balls or 5 go balls in a game. It might be a couple slot fades where there's a deep throw. It's 1 or 2 go balls in a game and a couple slants and bubble screens and things like that he can excel after the catch.
But I think that kind of goes
all right,
back.
last thing on the offense.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to like the Debo thing. It's like, again, like that in terms of laying your cards on the table and what this offense does well, it's Terry making explosive opportunities. It's yards after the catch from Debo Samuel. It's the contested catches from Noah Brown. And so even if that's not 100%, like, again, like Cliff's a smart dude. He'll figure it out. But how do we make sure we get like, hey, this is the play action shot on 3rd and 2. We got to get Terry in here at X for this play because we're going to run this heavy play action, hit this post over the top. Like we need him in there for that. So like that's what I'm saying is just be selective about when you're throwing your fastball. It's like a pitcher with like a little elbow tendonitis, right? I still got the fastball. I'm just not going to throw it as much as maybe I would normally do.
Okay. All right. Let me get last thing, Jayden. We haven't really addressed much on him year 2. The addition of Tunsil, in my point of view, like I believe the protection is going to be better this year for them. What I loved about Jayden a year ago coming in was that, listen, he is an unbelievable athlete. And I think what we saw in his rookie year is his instincts are extraordinary. And because of that, there are these Superman moments that occurred multiple times. But I look at this and I go, he's a pass first quarterback, kind of always was when he was coming out. And if he gets better protection and he's throwing the ball from a better pocket 5 to 10 more times a game, we're looking at a 4,000 to 4,500 yard passer this year, let alone an effective runner who might not have the same amount on the ground, but that might not be the worst thing. How much do you really want to expose him to running the ball all that much? So I wonder if you kind of see it the same way, that I actually think his passing stats are likely, with the additions that they've had, to take an exponential leap from where they were a year ago.
Yeah, I think when you look at, again, Jayden Daniels is the thing that drives this vehicle here, right? And so when you look at some of the things that it's hard to talk about this because he had such a good year, but things that he struggled with, it's throwing from a unclean pocket. Like he's a good mover, but the subtlety of pocket movement is still something that he's working on when you watch it on film, right? So what I would say is now you've eliminated the thing that kind of makes him uncomfortable there in the backfield. And again, I think you brought up a great point. Like he wants to throw the football, right? And I think that's one of the things that makes him special. He's a tremendous athlete that can throw the football. So by limiting, again, his exposure to the thing that makes him uncomfortable, I think you should see more efficiency there, right? And so, I absolutely agree with that take. And I just think it's just, we talked about this earlier in terms of the offense. How do you stave off statistical regression? This is a big one to me, because if you can make the quarterback more comfortable. The other thing that I think is often overlooked here is you've made now Cliff more comfortable. And what I mean by that is instead of having to use all these chip protections, now we can get 5 guys into the route. And Fletch can speak to this. That puts so much more stress on the defense. We can stretch zones more. We can overload zones in a way that we couldn't before. all because the protection's better, and which is again going to increase Jayden Daniels' efficiency. So I think the protection's a huge element. I think it's always been a huge element, and a big part of it is bringing the right people in. And Laramie Tunsil's that guy.
You know, the chipping and being able to get 5 guys out in the route, or even 4 guys out in the routes, is like you said, it's going to open up the zones. If you want to go to your spread package and they playing man-to-man on some third and shorter situations, he's going to be able to identify the matchups that he wants to take advantage of. Logan, you touched on maybe not being as comfortable when the pocket isn't as clean. So I'm thinking he's going to be. That's one of the things they probably worked on him with, though, during the offseason. Hey, because it's not going to always be clean. Making sure he's improved at that element when the pocket is not clean. Like you said, maybe it's a subtle side step here or there, stepping up here or there, things like that. Tom Brady, for he comes to mind. Brady wasn't mobile at all, but he just had this unique instinct to be able to just move to the left, to the right, stuff like that, just to avoid the rush and step up in the pocket, deliver throws when the pocket wasn't clean. So that's I think with Jayden, there's also going to be an evolution of the offense. They're going to put more concepts in the passing game. They're going to enhance that because, for one, you got better players too. This is his second year in offense. Cliff's going to add more to that passing game with more concepts that defenses now have to deal with.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because not only is it, Jayden, but now, like, and kind of to piggyback on that Cliff point, like, now we can get into, like, it's 5-step from under center, traditional drops where we're kind of attacking the middle of the field. And we talked about earlier how, like, chunk plays in offense are so valuable. And the reason that middle area, that 15 to 20 yard area of the field is considered such a important quarterback metric is because it's an easy way to find these explosive chunks. And so the fact that we can protect it better, if we can get Jayden to see that area of the field more, through better protection, like, that's another way the offense takes a step forward. So it's really, like, to me, the Laramie Tunsil addition is the move of the offseason because now we don't have to chip one side. We get more guys out. We can work slides away. We can trust him to win his one-on-one in a way that we haven't had a guy here. And quite honestly, not to besmirch anybody else here, but really there's only like 5 or 6 guys in the NFL that can do that. You just say out there, hey, win this one-on-one matchup. Like, that's what makes him so special. And it just opens up so much the offense because, again, like getting better in the trenches is an understatement. It allows you to run the football. It allows you to pass protect. And that makes the quarterback, makes the runners, makes the receivers all better.
Yeah, I'm with you. Tunsil was the move of the offseason, the trickle-down effect of them acquiring him to what it did to across the board on the line to what it allows them to do. I think it just can't be overstated. That was the literal move of the offseason to me. All right, before I let you guys go, since we're here, it's week 1. Just give me a general sense. London, I'll start with you. What does a successful season look like for the Commanders this year?
Successful season looks like
you're going to put my man on the spot like that, Bram? Come on, man. Week 1?
Oh, nah, man. Listen, successful season looks like making the playoffs, winning 10-plus games. I think that's I think 10 is the low bar for the floor for this group. Winning 10 games. We improved the roster so much. I don't know that we'll win necessarily more games, but it's going to look better. And that's why I say I think 10 is the floor for this team. Winning another playoff game, that would be a successful season for us. And just continue to see the development and improvement of Jayden Daniels and also a lot of the young talented football players on this team.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Fletch. I think, last year there was a little bit of serendipity, a little bit of luck to some of the wins. Anytime you're winning 1-score games, 8 of them in a row or whatever it was, like, that's got to get a little. Obviously, you're very talented. You practice those situations, but you got to be a little bit lucky as well. So I think, like, just making sure you've tipped the deck in a way that allows you to be a little bit more dominant, a little bit more assertive offensively and defensively. You guys did a great job talking about defensively, how they can be more efficient. We just talked about how offensively you can be more efficient. I think, and again, hopefully that manifests into a playoff win, playoff berth, 10-plus win season. I think that those are all good metrics, but I think just kind of being able to stave off some of those areas that normally regress with some of the additions and some of the schematic changes, I think that's a successful season.
Yeah, I mean, the weirdest stat in the NFL is that nobody has won the NFC East back-to-back years in 20 plus years. And if that's gonna hold, I'd like to think that we're in pole position to leapfrog Philadelphia. And if that's the case, not only are they in the playoffs, so they have home playoff games at least to start with. So I'd like to see that. That would and the Eagles have a lot to say, and Giants, Cowboys too. But the Eagles are gonna have a lot to say about that. I would like to see what that looks like, see what our crowd looks like in January if we could have a home playoff game, as opposed to what we did on the road, which is memories of a lifetime. But I want to see it in front of our home fans, and I'm hoping that's what we get this year too.
Absolutely,
awesome.
man.
All right, guys.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It's been we haven't hosted a home playoff game with a full stadium. It's been quite a while, man. Because you think the
one we did where they won the NFC East at 7-9, there was nobody here. It was the pandemic. It was like dystopian world. Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. All right, guys, I can't wait. Giants week 1, Packers week 2. So we're going to have a very busy first week of the booth review. I can't wait to do the game on Sunday. So for London, Logan, I'm Bram. We'll talk to you on Monday after week 1 and the Giants game. Booth Review was filmed at the Big Bear AI Command Center studio. Big Bear AI offers mission-ready AI for a rapidly evolving world, proudly protecting the Washington Commanders and its fans.